Builder back at it. Got my guy Lucas today, Josh Stoner, by way of Pat Ivy, one of our prior guests. He is the director of all sports performance over at University of Louisville. Today we have Josh Stoner, same deal, but at Stephen F. Austin University down in Texas. And usually I go into a nice little intro, and I'll get to that second. But I called Pat today, and he's like, "Hey, start off with what does smoking your turkey mean?" So we're gonna go
No
right
boy.
there. So we're gonna go right there first. And he gave me like six, seven things to ask right off the bat, but we're not necessarily doing them all. But we're going right there with smoking your turkey. What's that mean?
Yeah. I'm I'm not surprised. He at least he didn't say desert turkey. That would be a totally different story. Um Smoke your turkey, man. We just started talking about that way back in 2000 mid 2000s, just what it is in college athletics and what it can be, and if you allow it to be, it can be a black hole of people sucking your time and taking your energy and just completely draining you. So we just started talking about that as a staff and everybody who was on the staff at the time. Don't smoke your turkey. I don't even know how it came up. I don't remember that much. I'm getting up there and I don't remember all the details, but we just started saying don't smoke your turkey. And we had a couple on staff. I think I was pretty decent at it. It was still early on in my career, so my wife would probably disagree about my how much time I spent with my job and things like that at the time. But as you got older and then you get the younger staff and they come in and you're telling them don't smoke their turkey, and then one day they show up and their eyes are like this and getting a little bit of this, and you're like, it's what we're talking about. They're like, oh, I get it now. And now you're like, well, now you got to take some time off because you screwed yourself and you're worthless to us. You're out here making, you're being a dumbass basically. So, yeah, that was smoking the turkey.
So essentially, you're getting burned out because you're taking the job home too much. You're wearing it too much. You're internalizing it too much.
Too much.
And
Yeah.
and so, man, I'm guilty of that just last week at my own gym. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm 50. I should know better by now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you do that, and you get sucked in, and you get taken out of the situation and a little bit better perspective. You will
Mm-hmm.
not believe it what turned it around today, because it was like spilling over into today. And one of my coaches, he and I were he's absolutely ate up with hockey. I like hockey and appreciate it. He loves it, and I'm talking about Slapshot, the old movie back in the day with Paul Newman. It's a comedy, and they have these Hanson brothers on the team that just go off. They're just always killing people on the ice, right? And he and I are laughing about it. And I come in today to coach in the afternoon. I have these high school, and some of these kids are looking to play in college. And sitting there on my desk, wrapped up, is a new hockey jersey from that movie. And it's got the Hanson name on the back. So one of those brothers' name is on the back. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, that was a gift out of nowhere. And my wife shows up and she goes, "Does it say Hanson on the back?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And I was just, oh my God, this turned everything around. This little gesture of comedy in a movie that we talked about 2 weeks ago shows up on my desk. And I'm like, this is awesome. So,
That's awesome.
uh, yeah. So a little bit about Josh. Played multiple sports growing up, so clearly athletic. Goes to college, not necessarily to coach athletes, but it turns out that way, and we'll get into that. Wrestling, football, you name it, and goes small school down south. Gets married, has two boys, and the boys get one plays in college now, and the one's about to. And I was looking the pictures up. I'm like, I got to Google this person, and I get there. We do a little background check up front, and I'm like, tell me about this guy. I'm like, I think the wife's kind of taller too. So I'm like, that's step one.
Mm-hmm.
Step one of getting a college athlete is pick tall wife, right? Not
That's
anything
right.
else. It's
No,
step
for
one. I'm
sure.
like, and so I wanted to ask right off the bat also about going into physical therapy, going to school for physical therapy, and then the next thing you know, you're an athletic director at a college,
With the
right?
strength coach, yeah, the
Strength,
athletic director.
sorry, that's right.
Yeah,
The AD pulled you aside and said, "Hey, you want to be the strength coach?" Sorry,
pretty
I
much.
jumped that.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about how that went down and it just changed your life.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I didn't play any sports in college. I played some rugby. That wasn't part of college, but it was, a club
Fun.
team. And, yeah, it was fun. Something to do. And
Mm.
it was an interesting transition there. But yeah, as far as that goes, I was involved with athletics, and it was a small college, so you could pretty much everybody knew who everybody was, and it was a small, intimate atmosphere. We didn't have a huge staff, so I was involved in athletics, working in athletic department, doing different things, and then getting close to the end, thinking I'm going to go to physical therapy school. Had a good relationship with the athletic trainer, and we spent a lot of time talking. He started talking to me about strength and conditioning, and I'm like, that's gonna be a full time job, because I grew up. I never had a full time strength coach. I didn't, and we didn't have it at the college either. So it wasn't really something. I was athletic. I like to be in the weight room. I like to do training. I like the idea of organized training. He talked to me about that, so I was like, And then I guess at some point he talked to the AD about it, because next thing you know, the AD's talking to me and saying, "Hey, if this is something you want to do, I'm good with it. We'll do a few things." I mean, I wasn't getting paid, but he's throwing me some bones here and there. Free housing, free meal plan. Things that matter. And shoot, I was just like, you know what? Let's give it a go. And I did. And that's what happened. I spent a year there after my undergraduate, got my bachelor's, and I spent a year there doing that. And I'm not going to say it was smooth. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a weight room. They gave me the key. I did some things, started writing workouts, and, everything went from there. Had a few um, interesting conversations with coaches. Being young, it was interesting, but sure was fun. And shoot, I was like, you know what? If this is something I can keep doing, and the deeper I got into it, I was like, you know what? Let's get a master's degree. So I started applying to, different master or different GA positions, and ended up going to Southern Miss.
So you take that, learning from baptism by fire, and then we start adding more education, the master's degree, the CSCS, right? You start learning underneath some other folks as a GA, and we're a good 2 decades later. You won a national title with a football team in 17. I think it was a D2 school, you said.
Yep.
And now you're a director of sports performance and FCS school for football, but legit school. Stephen F. Austin's a legit school with legit program. Um, we're in the playoffs in football this year, right?
We didn't make it this year. No, we were close. A couple games, we would have been in.
Oh, that's right. So
But
South Dakota State. I saw that game. Okay. Um, so definitely made an impact. And then your son wrestles for Missouri, right? And then you have one at 16. He might play football, but he's also wrestles as well. Any idea where he's leaning?
I don't know yet. He's in his junior year, so I mean, he's had some decent conversations with a few schools, but things were slow the last few weeks, because obviously the portal
Always.
and well, yeah, the portal. I mean, that's really, everybody's so focused on the portal the last few weeks. There are not a lot of conversations going on with 26s, but yeah, now it's starting to pick back up. There's been some decent looks. I mean, I think he'll play at the FBS level. Even if he doesn't, that's fine with me. He wants to play football. We'll find him a place to play football.
All right.
Yeah.
So over these years and all the bumps and bruises and ups and downs, right? Um, people develop a philosophy on how to train people, and then that philosophy, evolves over time and de-evolves other times. Come across other folks like Pat Ivy or uh, Jim Wendler or Zach Evanesh or Westside Barbell guys. In a nutshell, when you're training, you work mostly with football. Do you have an overall philosophy for how you train athletes?
I think, it's a lot of variability as far as, what I want to expose them to. Now, we do the bench squat. We're gonna push weight. We're gonna get strong. Not a lot of different Olympic lifts. I mean, the main one I'll program with is pull from the floor and a hang clean. But a lot of outside of that, a lot of contrast. I mean, I've done some conjugate work. I really think for me, it's really just what fits the situation. I mean, at SFA, you mentioned it earlier in 17, I was at Texas A&M Commerce, a Division II school, had a really nice facility there. But there were some different things I had to do because of limitations. So I started doing a lot more med ball work there because that's what fit. And here at SFA, can't do a lot of med ball work in the weight room. But I got landmines everywhere. So we're doing a lot of landmine work. As far as, some of our accessory and different things like that. So I'm really about adjusting to the situation. I'm not going to walk in any situation and say, hey, I need these things, and I'm going to freak out when I look in my weight room and I can't do those things. I'm going to say, well, you can pretty much every weight room you walk into, you're going to be able to do the basic compound lifts. But after
Mm-hmm.
that, how creative can you be? And I think that's one thing that's kind of kept me energized is the ability to be creative and find new ways and do different things and get the same results, not be stuck on, okay, we have to do it this way, because at Missouri, I was there for a long time. We did a lot of, we started using tendos and a lot of the velocity based stuff you kind of see now. I mean, we had Brian Mann on staff and a lot of that stuff we did there. And I haven't had tendos since I've been at Missouri. So I'd love to have them, but if you're going to give me, like right now at SFA, I need new plates. So I'm going to buy new plates over buying tendos. Um,
Sure.
the, but yeah, I think overall, I think my biggest thing is movement, quality movement, and making sure athletes can move. So when we're on the field, when you get these athletes in and they're in the weight room and they look good on their squat and they look good on their bench and they can pop a clean, but then you're like, okay, dissociate your hips from your, you know, shoulders and you're doing different things and they're just moving like
Robotic.
this. And it's like, okay, we're going to get better out here. And that's kind of what I see, what I've seen at the so I went from Division II to FCS, and it's probably not as much at the P4 level because you're going to have a better skilled, more movement quality. But at these levels, I think you really do need to dig into that because a lot of these kids are deficient, and if you can pull that out of them a little bit better, it's going to show up on Saturdays. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I was talking to, we have different kinds of athletes that we train at our gym, and by and large, there's a lot of CrossFitters or just people want to be healthy with the adults, and they're doing some hang cleans, and the lady has a bad wrist, and I'm like, no need to catch the bar, and so we're showing her just the pulls, and he said, well, that still kind of hurts. Cool, put that down. We'll do some jumps, and we'll do some banded kettlebell swing. And she's like, what? I go, I'm just trying to get your hips to open up explosively, and I can do
Mm-hmm.
the same thing a whole bunch of different ways, and I'm taking the problem out of the situation. And she's like, oh man, I get so nervous that I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. I'm like, that doesn't matter. We're trying to get
Mm-hmm.
your hips to open up explosively. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So let's
Mm-hmm.
just do that. So, uh, and you said when you're at Missouri, they had the tendos, and you've been there long enough. Well, you have that coach's eye where you can see if it's moving fast enough, right? You know,
Right.
on a speed day, if they're grinding through, weight's too heavy, right? And you don't need
Mm-hmm.
a tendo to say that. You can just say, hey, dude, weight's too heavy, moving too slow. Here we go. And then you
Mm-hmm.
just prioritize with the plates versus the tendo unit, and still have plenty of gains to be made.
Yeah,
And if they're newer kids that are newer to the weight room, there's plenty of gains to be made that first year with just the basics, with basic movement standards, right?
for sure.
So you can move the needle there and prioritize. Now, down in Texas, like I'm from Ohio, and Ohio's big on football. Pennsylvania's big on football. California, Florida, Texas is real big on football in the high school level, right? And I'm looking these things up, right? And just the top 10 stadiums alone. Now, some of them are for like a couple different schools, but they're averaging 18 to 20,000 in size
Yes.
for high
Yeah,
school kids. And
I
like
think there's about 10 of those stadiums in the state, like you said. Yeah.
yeah. And then shout out Eagle Stadium for Allen High School,
Mm-hmm.
wherever the heck that is. 18,000 alone just for one school.
Right. Well, that their enrollment approaches 7,000. Yeah, it's a mini college. So Rockwall and Allen are about 45 minutes apart. So
Okay.
I've seen a lot of Allen, and they're not in the same district as Rockwall, but I've seen a lot of Allen. Yes. So I don't know. I've never really had any, in-depth conversations with anybody from Allen, but they don't, they don't diverse. They don't split up. Like a lot of schools will build a new high school when the enrollment gets too high. They just keep adding to the Allen campus, and it's 7,000 people. And I think that's kind of how they got it done. I mean, that stadium is actually what built in the about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think it was 14.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been around and it still
Yep.
looks great. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a nice facility. You go to it and you're like, there's probably 60% of the you know, FCS D2s in America that would be like, we want this on our campus.
Yeah.
And but there's schools that have built like Prosper ISD, which is close as well. They got a big sprawling stadium that's beautiful.
Mm.
And it was funny because going off on a tangent. They built this new stadium, and I'm pretty sure it's only less than 5 years old. And then they were putting a proposal through to build another stadium at like $80 million. And I'm like, why? But it got turned down. The voters said no on that one. But it was pretty interesting. But yeah, there's a ton of beautiful high school stadiums in the state of Texas.
So I'm just thinking back to Friday Night Lights, Varsity Blues, like small town, big town, culturally. Talk about what football's like down there in Texas uh, at that level, and because you're recruiting, there's plenty of recruits right out of the state alone where you have plenty of options, plenty of fish to go hunt for. Uh,
Hmm.
just talk about what that's like culturally down there. And then my other question is, talk about the heat because I like the snow. I like snow,
Mm,
right? I enjoy snow. And I see Texas and Florida, and it's 105 and humid. That sounds god awful. So talk about those two things, the culture, and I need to know. I just gotta personally know about the heat because damn, right?
I got you. Yeah, no, yeah, no, the culture's fun. I mean, Rockwall's a 6A school, so we play, where my kids play football is, the highest level, and it's 6A Division 1, so that's the highest enrollment level and the biggest you know level of playoffs. I mean, there's good teams all over the state at all classifications, but just from a number standpoint and what you get on a Friday night, Rockwall will put, we can have 5,000 plus people at a game. And then when you play the crosstown rival, I mean, that gets over 12, 13,000 people in that stadium. And so it's fun. And that was one thing my oldest son, he could have played, he had a choice. He could play college or, I mean, football or wrestling in college. He had options to do both. He just said, he was in love with wrestling, but he said, the one thing I'm going to miss is, Friday nights when you run out and you see all the people in the stands. And he said, man, that really gets you juiced up. I said, I
Right?
bet. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's it's a cool deal. So yeah, I mean, you got a lot of eyes on you, and it's a neat, loud, energetic environment. So yeah, the culture's real. I mean, there's no doubt Texas football, and I know a lot of other states have great, football as well. It's not like Texas is the end all be all, but there is a great culture around football in the state of Texas, and people really get behind it and they love it and they want to be at the games and people go and yeah, so it is fun. I will I will say that. Yeah, and the heat is real. I mean,
Right?
you got to. I mean, so my summer training we run at 7. I don't have any other groups. We run one time. We have one group at 7, and we're done. Everything else is inside.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mess with it. I know football coaches, they might want you out there in the heat, and I'm like, I'm not playing that game. We're going in. We're gonna run. It's gonna be plenty hot by the time 8:15 hits. Don't worry about it. We'll be sweating. Guys will be panting. It'll be tough, but it's the same thing. Like with your practices when you go into fall camp, you need to get it in the morning. I mean, we at SFA, we'll get close to 9:30, and then by that time you're like,
Right?
get them
Get
out,
out.
let's roll, because guys are. But
Dying.
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's any level of conditioning you can get to that's gonna freaking get you
Acclimate.
right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's hot, and you got pads on, and the sun is on you. We don't have an indoor here.
Right.
If you have an indoor, if you've got some shade, you can change the game a little bit. But if you got to go outdoors all the time, that heat is real. That's what I tell the players. I like, if you want to destroy something, what do? You light it on fire. If you want to preserve, what do? You put it in the freezer. I don't know. And some of them look at me like I'm an idiot. It's a little old, but whatever. Light it up or freaking get it preserved. So
Gotcha.
the heat is real.
So on game days, I'm assuming you guys probably play it a lot of times, probably one
Mm.
noon or in that area. How do you prepare for those for playing at that time?
Well, at our level, we are fortunate. Just we don't have to play the TV schedule game.
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't know when you're going to play. You might play at 11. You might play at 3. You just gotta go with it. But most of our games early on are going to be about 6. And
Okay.
that's just unless we're going to go play, one of our money games at an FBS school. But typically when those schools schedule, like we played at North Texas this year, and it was a night game, because it wasn't a big TV game for them, so they scheduled it at night. So typically for us, early on we have evening games, so that's good for us. And then as you get later into November, the game times will go up to 2, 3, something like that. So
Hmm.
I don't have to worry about that as much at this level.
That's good. That's good planning. That's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, anytime I have the ability to, if they're talking about scheduling, talking about game times, I'm always going to pipe up with I'm going to just say, hey, do it in the evening. There's no point in, number one, you probably won't get anybody to come out to the game anyway if it's freaking 1 o'clock. I mean, they're getting smoked, and they're getting their turkeys smoked.
That's
You
right.
don't want to smoke your fans' turkey, so that's no good.
So
You know, go ahead.
I'm just curious that when you're doing your conditioning sessions, what kind of coach are you whenever you're running conditionings? Are you like a rah guy? Are you a I'm just kind of I just want to know what do you
Um,
like when you're conditioning?
if you're talking about conditioning, if you're talking about pushing it a little bit, pushing them in that comfort
Intensity.
zone, then yeah, I kind of flip the switch. I don't want them feeling good about it. I want them to think about quitting. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't want them to quit, but if I see them get to that point, then I'm gonna start talking a little different, a little more positive, a little more. It's not to say that I was negative, but I'll start trying to bring them back. Hey, you're at the point now. It's time for you to understand that you need to keep pushing through this because you can, and then we get going. But up to that point, I'm in their ass. I'm not gonna sit there and go, "Come on, guys, we can do this." No, it's gonna be get your ass on the line. Let's freaking go. Okay, now I see some different body language. Okay, now here's what you need to be thinking about. And it's probably a lot of what you guys. I didn't listen to all of Pat's episode, but I know there was some mental, conditioning, and that's when you have the opportunity. You put those kids in the position so you can teach them, because one of my pet peeves is people thinking the sport teaches the lessons. It's not the sport. The sport gives you the platform and the opportunity, and when you see that, you have to address it at that time. So that's
Right.
that's kind of what I see conditioning as, is pushing those guys till they're uncomfortable, because most of them, unless yeah, a lot of guys I see nowadays, especially, they think they've done some hard, but they don't really know, and then you have to push them to that point, and then you have to be the guy that kind of flips a switch and says, okay, now here's what you need to be thinking about at this point, because you're all messed up in the head. You're thinking about quitting. You're giving in to the fatigue. You're thinking about the wrong shit. You need to be focused on, this next rep, this next drill. You don't need to be thinking about the time. You just need to be thinking about, what do I need to do to execute? Step on the line, get in the right position, and go, and then finish. And then what do I have to do next? And just trying to teach them that. And it's not easy, but that's kind of the way I look at it. But yeah, more or less, I'm pretty much an asshole up until the point that we need to I need to not be an asshole.
You're constantly building those reference points. Hey, I was training hard before, or so I thought. Now this is what real fatigue and challenges and pain feels like. And then they learn, hey, I handled it. I'm okay. Next time I'm here, here's what I was told to do last time. Now I have a reference point. And you're right about having a sport. The sport provides all the lessons, but the kids aren't going to be able to draw the parallels because they're kids. And plus, when they're that out of breath, they're fucked up, right? So they're not thinking. They're just trying to survive and hoping
Hmm.
that you're done, right? So when you draw the parallels for them, because you've already seen the lesson, now you're pointing out the lesson because you know it's coming and whatnot. So that's where the education piece comes in and say, and then you, if you can attach a why are we doing this? Why are we
Hmm.
doing this? Why are we doing this? Because you don't want to be cramping up in the middle of the game in the third quarter. I got to take you out for a play or two and then bring you back in, right? You want to make sure that you know how to prepare on a hot day. You have your salt, you got your electrolytes, you got your water, right? And then this is how it feels, and this is how you execute,
Hmm.
right? And it all has to be learned. And what's great is that the next year you get new kids that haven't learned it yet, so you got to do it again and do it
Hmm.
again, right?
Yep. And then the guys who've been through it before should start learning how to teach the other guys, and
Yes.
that's how you build a little bit better team, which is getting
Mm-hmm.
harder to do because these freaking rosters are turning over every year.
Yeah. How many do you guys lose in the portal and pick up in the portal like in an off season? Because there's usually it's like
Uh,
right after the games end, there's portal movement. Then right after spring ball, there's portal movement, right?
yep, twice a year now.
Yeah.
Last year there was a lot more movement for us. This year it was a little bit less. We actually graduated a lot of guys last year. I'll say, being here at SFA, we did do a pretty good job with that. I got here in what as a 19, so we had a pretty good class that made it, their whole 4 or 5 years, and so quite a bit of that turnover was guys who actually matriculated out with graduation and exhausting their eligibility. But we still had a lot of transfers last year. I mean, I think, yeah, can't remember what the number is, but yeah, we in that January and then again in July, I was looking at half a new team
Mm.
basically, and
Dang.
um, our guys who were still around weren't necessarily, you know, hadn't been around as long. So I was working with a lot of guys, so there were some challenges, and but that's kind of fun. I think that's kind of fun for me is um, that challenge of having to meet that every year. I mean, it does get a little bit um, like this year. I don't think we don't have as many transfers coming in here in January. I can't remember that number either, but it's not as many as it was last January.
How many coaches do you have on strength coaches do you have on staff
I
for
have
football?
two. So well, everybody. So the way I have it organized is, there's myself. I do, I program for football fully. I do everything. I don't have it broken up with the staff, but everybody on the staff will work with football. So I have two full times and three graduate assistants, and everybody. One of those full times work with men's basketball. So like right now, he won't be working with football, um, uh, but in the summer he'll be out there helping me with the runs. So everybody in the summer and everybody else during the rest of the year. So they all get experience with football, and that helps me. And then I have um, there's a couple guys on the football side of things that'll come help, do some things. They're not necessarily wanting to be strength coaches, but they're young coaches and they need to see everything. So our head coach here does a pretty good job with that, Colby Carthel. Because a lot of the guys, a lot of the young coaches that are in our program at SFA with football will end up in high school. So they need that experience. They need to understand the whole thing and not just go, oh, we need a strength coach because that's what you do in college. We need a strength coach. In high school, you might be the strength coach, so you need to understand what's going on.
Mm.
It makes me want like it kind of makes me think about how you oh, what am I trying to say? Structure your programming and your day to day routines, and with the transfer portal, how has that affected your ability to develop athletes over? I mean, over a 4 year period. I mean, it can't be. It's got to be somewhat difficult, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I haven't had a lot of conversations with other peers about that, but my viewpoints on it is that's kind of going away. I'm not seeing that as something that's really gonna live in the strength and conditioning world like it has in decades past. I mean, ever since the '70s when Boyd Epley, popularized strength and conditioning and Nebraska and this and that and development. And now, I mean, there's a lot, especially when you're turning over rosters and bringing in portal guys, and that's one thing I'm trying to echo or push. Whenever I have the chance, sometimes I think coaches look at me like, why are you even opening your mouth right now? But I'm just like, hey, do a good job when you're evaluating these guys. Don't just look at skills. I mean, there's a reason, if they come in here and they're skilled or whatever, but everything else sucks, they're not going to help us. I mean, you got to have some shit to you if you want to play, especially if they're a drop down guy. I mean, you got to have a little bit of something in you if you want to play at FCS. I mean, because there's a lot of shit you have to do on your own. We don't have a dining hall. You don't get to walk out and have everything in your facility, and you got to make a meal every now and then. I mean, just yeah, I'm about to yeah,
It
I'm
reminds
about
me
to
of
twist off.
kind of reminds me of back when I was playing Division III football, and
Yes,
you didn't get anything, but
no, you don't get. I mean, hey, buy your own cleats, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, buy your own
yeah.
uniform, and I mean,
You
I don't
share
know
a
if you had
locker.
to do that, but some people do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
Um,
I can remember just when I because I work with a lot of kids, and we got at the high school I work at, we got like incredible talent year in year out, guys that are going. We just had a kid go to Notre Dame. He's in between second and third string right now, and we got a kid go to Purdue.
yeah,
We got a couple kids got offered by IU. I mean, we just got crazy talent, and we got a one this year and a two, maybe two kids this year, but we got a lot of kids that aspire to go play college football, and it's not everybody's going to go Division 1, and they think because if they go Division 2 or Division 3 that it's not going to require the same amount of work.
mm-mm,
I was saying it to a kid the other day. I was like, well, if
more,
you're going to go to Division 3, and if you go Division 3, you're still going to get up at 5 a.m. or 6
yeah,
a.m. and still go work out.
yeah,
You're still got to go to meals. Otherwise, no one's going to make you go to meals. No one's going to do meal checks probably, but you're
mm,
going to have to make yourself go there. It's almost harder sometimes if you ask me to be a Division 3, Division 2 guy because you don't have those resources. You don't have those. You don't. You just have lack of resources, and you
yeah.
got to make it yourself sometimes.
Well, the responsible people figure it out, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're at that. You got, and this is something I'm always preaching is just have a damn plan. Have a plan. Have a plan. I mean, I say that so much. I know they make fun of me, and because they'll do it around me sometimes. I got a plan, coach. I'm like, well, are you executing your plan? But yeah, so for like what you're just saying is the responsible people are going to rise to the top, whereas the higher you go up in levels, the more people are doing things for you, just so you can manage yourself onto the field, and
Yep.
that's fine. I mean, I get it. I mean, there's a lot of money involved, and there's a lot of reasons to do it at a high level, but there's some you're not always doing the athlete the best favor by doing that.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's responsibility. That's something I think. Yeah, for us, I mean, it matters. Just learning how to be well, for football players, learning how to be a man. Accept responsibility for yourself, understand the consequences of your actions. You know, take care of it. Let's go.
That's where a ton of more lessons and parallels can be drawn. One of my guys, Levi, he plays baseball up at Trine, and he listens to almost every one of these, and he always makes fun of me because, like you, one of my phrases is "it takes what it takes,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's Trevor Moawad as it's a title of his book. I reference it in my book,
Mm-hmm.
but if you as an athlete requires 9 hours of sleep, and you're a D3 or a D1, you still require 9 hours. And if you need extra grams of protein or you're not getting strong enough to play well. Because with some strength coaches are different, right? They a lot of sprinting, a lot of running, a lot of Olympic lifting, a lot of speed, and they don't build absolute strength. Some guys are all about building absolute strength. They got some clunky people. I'm like, well, to be a great athlete, you need to be super strong and super powerful and super fast. So if you're being neglected in some area or your body isn't responding to the stimulus and an area is neglected and you want to win, you still got to go fix that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Well, if you need to be faster and you're not, then you need to do more work to be faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're too weak and maybe you're a second or third stringer and you're playing some, but you're not on the developmental lift team, well, you kind of need to actually lift a little bit more than what they're asking you to do because you're still behind. And that's what it takes. So
Mm-hmm.
I know you're hoping that what they're programming for the entire group is enough, but everyone's different. People learn differently. People's bodies are different. People's habits are different. And if you are doing what everyone else is doing, that may or may not be enough. So it sometimes, a lot of times, it takes more. And no one has the time and resources to be a one-on-one personal training coach with 100 kids in football, right? To
Right.
walk you through meal prep, walk you through taking your supplements, that you're even taking supplements, right? That you're walking through having your sleep habits, but it's still the thing, right? So if you want to play the high level and you don't have someone pushing you that way, then you got to figure it out yourself or find a mentor or someone else that knows that information and pumps it into your head. And that's what we do with our business. But you still need help there, and it
Mm-hmm.
sucks because you're a kid and you don't know any better. Like I didn't know I needed to do more than this. I'm doing whatever the strength coach told me to. No one said I needed to have a bunch of salt before a hot game, right? So now I'm all fucked, right? But it still takes what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is a completely shifting gears, but early on in your when I got the information from you, I saw Coastal Carolina, and I know the strength coach there now. And I saw this. I'm like, is that Joe? Is it Moglia?
Yes.
Because my background's finance and investments. It's 15 plus years, JP Morgan MBA, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
strength and conditioning. That's only the last 12. I completely pivoted and shifted. But that's a TD Waterhouse guy, right? Like TD Ameritrade.
TD Ameritrade.
So,
Yes,
yeah, so you tell me that, just tell me how that worked. Like, what's going on there? Because you worked with him.
I did.
And
Yeah.
and then, because he was a coach, and then he went and founded that thing. Like, well, just tell that story real quick.
So yeah, it's yeah, I was in Missouri, and the I didn't know much about it, and then he had hired Brock Olivo, who was a Missouri running back, been around the Missouri program, knew Pat, and so he was. They were looking for a football strength coach at the time, and Joe had worked with Brock, so he trusted Brock. So he's kind of like, okay, why don't you do some headhunting for me? And me and Brock were talking, and I was like, sure, man, that sounds interesting. I've never been like a uh, I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but just doing things the way everybody else does. I like doing things a little bit different, and I'm cool with that. So I didn't care that Joe was. I thought it was neat. I'm like, okay, I want to meet this guy. He sat in the biggest chair. He sat in a bigger chair than most head football coaches, and had more pressure on him than most head football coaches, and sat in rooms with some really powerful people. And so I'm just like, this interesting. So I went on an interview and sat in a room with him, and it didn't take me very long to know that he could run a football program. Now, calling plays, you know, talking about, specific things you're going to do on third down, or what your first down, series is, or what your first 10 plays are, or what you're no. But handling people and running a program, I mean, there was things he said, and we were talking in an interview, and he's just like, that stuff doesn't matter. I mean, this is what you need to do. This, and this. And I'm like, okay. And, we just had a really, like, kind of like what you said. Okay, we're just going to basically shoot the shit. And that's what we ended up doing, me and him. And it was um, it was refreshing because he wasn't, uh, I guess the best word is stiff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of football coaches, head football coaches get that way. They're like, we must do things this way.
Mm-hmm.
so and so. They're worried about what other programs are doing, or they worried about things have to be a certain way for it. And Joe wasn't really like that, and it's probably a lot of the reasons because he didn't. He just came out of the business world, and he had a thought. He had thoughts of his own, and he was going to do things the way he thought they needed to be done, and organize things the way he thought they needed to be organized. And so that was a good conversation. So at the time, it was just football. So they were asking me because what I was making in Missouri was going to be a pretty significant pay cut, and I'm just like, not sure I can do that. I'd love to, but it's probably not going to happen. And then I go back to Missouri, and a few days later they call me, hey, you can have the head job. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I don't know what happened, but now the director job is open, and I'm the guy they want. And I said, well, I'll take it. So yeah, so that's how that happened. And then I got there, and shoot, my first 6 months, I was doing things as like, because I'd been in Missouri for like 8 or 9 years, and there was Coach Pinkel was obviously a really great coach, and he's in the College Football Hall of Fame, but we did things a certain way, and you knew what you were going to do from January through December. And so I'm like that. I'm programmed up, I'm ready, and it's all good. And then, as we got further along, one day I'm sitting there with Joe, and we're talking, and he just finally goes, "Why are you telling me all this?" Well, you're the head coach. You need to know all this. He says, no, I don't. I hired you to do the job. Go do your job. And I was
Yeah.
like, what? Then I was like all shook up for like the next week. I'm like, oh shit. What do I talk to him about? What do I tell him? I don't know what to. But then I was like, you know what? He told me to do my job. I'm going to do my job. When he wants to know something, he'll come talk to me. And that's what happened. We just started. I didn't, I'd go up there and shoot the shit with him, or he'd come down and shoot the shit with me. But we didn't have to talk about a lot. He's like, you're organized. You know what you're doing. You're a smart guy. Get the job done. And then I'll get my job done, and we'll win football games. I said, okay.
You're telling me he didn't expect you to come up and bring reports or DEXA scan reports or
Nope.
wait meal check
No.
reports? Crazy. That is
I was
wild.
shook
That's
because I was
wild.
like, yeah, I was programmed up. I was in robot mode. That's another thing we used to say in Missouri, robot mode. But I was programmed, and I mean, we'd been really successful in Missouri, and you can be successful. But yeah, when he did that, I had to reevaluate some things, and I just started kind of. I mean, I kept a lot of that. I didn't stop doing those things. I just did them my way. I didn't have to do it a certain way or have to make it look a certain way. I'm like, oh well, shit, I can just take the things I want to do, and then I can add my own pieces. And we still did a lot of that stuff, and I still, did profiles, and I still did. But when I'd give it to the staff and we sit in the meetings, he's just like, all right, Josh, what we got? And I'm like, boom, 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 boom. And he looks at everybody and goes, anybody got any questions? All right, good. Good job. I'm like, what? And then, yeah, so it threw a lot of the assistants off too, because, every assistant he had was a football guy. He didn't have any CEOs in the room. So I remember there were some times where you could see them squirming a little bit, like, what's going on? Because he was challenging them as well in our staff meetings, like, why do we do it that way? And people would start going, and he's like, well, if you can't answer the question, then we need to evaluate why we're doing it, and we need to do it the right way. That's going to help us win. And yeah, he just brought a lot to the table that was outside. I don't think it's outside the box, but it was for football.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just bringing a lot of his CEO skills to the table, and it made people uncomfortable. I remember some of our coaches being pretty uncomfortable, but
I could definitely
yeah,
see that. That's
I mean, like I said, I was shook up after he did that because, I mean, he kind of came at me. I mean, he wasn't being an ass. He just goes, "What? Why are you talking to me? What are we talking about?" And I go, because he was trying to do a bunch of stuff. One time I was in there talking to him, and he was on a board call because he was still on the board. He wasn't, the CEO anymore, but he was on the board, and he had the phone going, and people are talking, and I'm like talking to him, and he goes, "Hang on just a second." He boop, and he just starts going bop 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 bop. I'm like, so wait, we're talking. You know what I'm saying? they're talking, you know what they're saying, and you were able to stop mid and talk to them and then come back and talk to me. I'm like, nah, I can't do that. I don't know what you're doing. But um, yeah, it was fun. And he's like, hey, you want to go get some dinner? I'm like, yeah, let's go get some dinner.
Sounds like a cool dude.
Yeah, he was good. He was good. I mean, he would get in my ass. Like I remember one time we were standing there and yeah, it was a football. We're I can't remember where we were, but for some reason we had to enter the field behind the goalpost, and I had to stop the team. And the other team was running. I don't remember why it was set up like this, but the other team was running from us, and I'm just like, I said something. I was being I was in a game mode. I was like, yeah, and he was right behind me. I didn't know, and he goes, you need to shut the hell up. And I was like, I looked around, I go, you got it, coach. Because I was just mad about them or having to wait. And he's just like, it doesn't matter. Just shut the hell up. And I'm like, you're right. It doesn't matter. But for football people, it mattered. And I was just kind of mad about it. But anyway, it was, yeah, he would jump me a little bit, but he was still a cool dude. Really cool.
So he's the CEO and founder of TD Ameritrade and built that up, but wanted to get back into coaching because he loved that. So he stops that and comes back and starts working with you. It's like that one coach, Leach, who was at Washington State, then down at I think Southern Miss. He was an attorney, a practicing attorney, doing very very well, and then he gets into coaching. What I found really interesting with what you just talked about with your with Joe's management leadership style. You know, if you're with me, if I'm working with you and you're doing well, and I see you doing well, that builds trust. And if I have more trust, I give you more rope. And he was willing to say, hey, from the get go, I'm going to give you a bunch of trust until you fuck up, and then the rope gets shorter. So when you start making a bunch of mistakes, there's a bunch of losses, a bunch of injuries, whatever, however you quantify and qualify mistakes, then the rope gets shorter, and then he has to micromanage more. And it sounds like, I'm not saying with all football teams or with your team, but maybe at Missouri, you guys are in the habit of having a report, and then you give enough information to the main guy, and the main guy makes every decision, right? Here you go, here you go, here you go. What do you think? Coach says this. Okay, great. So then you go back and execute. And I've been faced with that a few times with people I managed, and my response during that is, I have ideas, I have some intelligence where I can lend a hand to those folks, and it might be a different perspective, which can be helpful. On the same token, if everything comes down to me and my decision making ability, then we're only as good as my brain, and that's limited. And you have different experiences, and you're smarter in other areas. I'm counting and hoping that your brain in these other areas is better, or you take what I know and you evolve it. It's not just limited to me. That's the whole point. The group is bigger than the individual parts. And it sounds like Joe just, hey, you're doing well. Here's more trust. And then it must have been different because I guess some of those guys weren't quite used to that level of autonomy. Because then once you have that, now you can actually go out and be creative. Because now you're not just being robotic. You're trying some different things and seeing how some different tactics work. And so if you can get in that kind of relationship on your staff, then you guys can really have some growth. You mentioned on the sheet I had you fill out, and we don't talk about this, and you said people don't talk about this enough, that, yeah, we're trying to build people. We're building them mentally, physically, performance, blah, blah. But like the Al Davis phrase for the Raiders, just win, baby. Like winning does matter, right? And you wrote that down. So talk about why that's important for you to highlight here.
Yeah, I think, we sometimes, I don't know, it's because you get into the talk of the process and development, process. And yes, that's huge and you need to be focused on it. But there's also a point where you got to win. And it's interesting because this just came up like with my oldest son. He's a Division I wrestler, and I mean that's the pinnacle. I mean he's been through the youth, and he's been through the national tournaments, and he's been in high school, won a state tournament in high school, and so he's done some good things. But just this weekend he took a loss, and he shouldn't have taken a loss, and it was tough. And, he told me after, started having the wrong thoughts during the match, lost my focus, and my only response I could just say was, that's got to go away. It can't happen anymore. In high school there was some workability. It's like, okay, yeah, okay, we're moving, but now it's like, okay, you want to be the starter and you want to be the guy. It's got to go away. And I want to hug him and say, you're my son. I love you. And I mean, I do that. I love you. I'm proud of you. But at the same time, it's like, it's got to go away. We've got to figure out how to get it right. And, you got to win. He's a hard, tough, smart, does everything right. I mean, if you want a kid to coach, he's the kid. And I've been lucky he's that way. But, yeah. And so I think the winning does have to be talked about, and I think it does have to be, emphasized. It can't just be, we gave it our best. 2 years ago we were 3-9 at SFA. That's not good enough. And we could have been better, but it's you can't just say, oh well, explain it away. This, we still had the great process. We still had great development. I have to look at it and say I was 3-9. I'm in charge of football. I'm 3-9. What do we need to do? And I can't just say it's just process and development. Did I do some things? What was my mindset? What did I bring to the table? I think you need to be able to put that pressure on yourself to feel it. But again, it's not everything. You gotta have a little dichotomy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's process and development, and there's winning, and you gotta be able to move between both, I think. So
Bill Parcells has always said, "You are what the scoreboard says you are."
mm-hmm.
He goes, I remember because he was getting interviewed by reporters after a game, and he goes, "Aren't you guys like the best 2-5 team out there?" And he goes, "You are what the scoreboard says you are. Like we're 2-5. Like we're not
Yeah.
we're not a good team right now."
Right.
And when I have a son that plays college sports, and the other kids that played sports, and sometimes I would talk to them. I said, "Do you want the coach hat or you want the dad hat?" I can wear either hat right now,
Right.
and I will flip that switch. And it's important for me to point out, when I say to them, "Hey, you guys are enough. You are enough for me. You are enough for me, and you're enough in God's eyes." Now, you want to talk about winning? And I say, "Hey, my thoughts went somewhere else. Like, hey, it could be that I'm not playing well, and the coach is going to pull me. I'm worried about losing my starting job, or blah blah blah." And so then you're losing focus, and then mistakes happen, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're not focusing on your next move, your next single leg takedown, or whatever the move is in wrestling. And there's pressure. Like it's Big 12, so you go to Oklahoma State and it's a dual meet. They have pyrotechnics there. I don't know how it is in Missouri, but it's vicious and violent. You go to Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa State, right? Those are big time schools, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to be the man. Like you don't get there. So to get to the top is an enormous interview and weeding out process. And it comes down to you execute super well on all the intangibles and everything leading up to the match. But to be a winner, you are what the scoreboard says you are. So you're going to have to get some W's. And
Mm-hmm.
if not, then you're just not there. And maybe you don't get there. That's okay in my eyes and Jesus' eyes. But if it's not okay in your eyes, then you must be relentless. I love that book by Tim Grover,
Mm-hmm.
and how you're evaluating all your process and development, but also how do you come out and execute? Do you come out and execute? Some are better on game day. Some people are worse, and you need someone there objectively saying, "Hey, this is where you're fucking up. This is where
Mm-hmm.
you're not meeting it."
Yep.
It's on game day, or some guys they're drunk during the week, but they play fine on game day. So okay,
Yep.
there's all different kinds. Uh, that's a hard one because now you're at that top level, and it's razor thin margins.
Right.
It's 1-0 for a win, three
Mm-hmm.
two, 3-2,
Mm-hmm.
or 2-2 plus riding time, right? Oh
Mm-hmm.
man, right? That's
Yes.
that is hard. That is hard. That is hard.
Mm.
With the wrestling, is he? He's a young kid, right? He's like I'm 50, right? So he's in his 20s. Does he have like the history with Dan Gable? Does he read his books? Does he watch those things? Is he into that, or he's just like I'm just trying to win? Blah 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 blah. Because with Cael Sanderson and Dan, there's some legends out there in the wrestling world, right?
Hmm.
I just wondered, does he at all like look that up or look into that at all, or he's too young for it? I'm just wondering.
No, he knows those guys and he looks at their stuff. Like he's never read Gable's book or anything, but obviously with that generation and Instagram and things like that. But that stuff's all over. I mean, we send stuff back and forth to each other. I'll see
Sure.
something, I'll send it to him, and then he starts sending me stuff back. So yeah, he knows those guys, and he loves that hard nosed type of guy. It's Dan Gable. Jordan Burroughs was his guy growing up. Like he loved Jordan, so he hit a lot of doubles. He's not hit a lot of doubles now because he's a heavyweight. So he's not hit a lot of doubles at heavyweight. But yeah, growing up, when he was in youth and stuff, he was always about the double, just freaking blasting through people. But yeah, Jordan Burroughs, that's the only shoe he wore up until he got to Missouri was Jordan Burroughs shoe. So that was his guy.
Um, I'm not that well versed in wrestling, but I do appreciate just what I've learned about Dan Gable. He actually has two books out. You didn't realize that his sister was murdered,
Right.
and huge movement in his life. But you want to talk about relentless? This, what the statue of him is at University of Iowa. It's him
Hmm.
with like this. It's the
Yeah.
the referees move for stalling. He doesn't want people stalling. So that's the statue they built of him. And he would talk about different All Americans that he coached. And the one story that stuck out, this guy was trying to lose weight, and his process was he'd go running at night. But Iowa during wrestling season is pretty cold.
Hmm.
You don't want that. You want the heat to sweat out the water. Well, this kid figures out that when he was walking through campus, there's a little manhole cover and steam's coming out of it. So he pulls the cover off, and this dude crawls down in the sewer system, which would
Hmm.
happen to be lit up, but super
Hmm.
hot with all the steam. So when he would go jogging underground in the sewer tunnels
It
with
was
all the
hot.
steam, and he would sweat out pounds and then
Yep.
crawl out, and then he go make weight.
Yeah.
And like, what? What? This other guy he was coaching, he only felt right in his head if and only if that day he did 500 push-ups.
Oof.
500 a day.
Yeah.
See, that was his standard. Every day I'm doing 500. So this guy wins gold medal in Olympics. That was the one day where he did his 500 push-ups after the medal round,
Mm.
after the match,
I
not
gotcha.
before. But
Yeah.
still, hey, I'm doing 500 a day because this is what I do. For me
That's
to
what you
feel
do.
right,
Yeah.
it probably isn't great, but that was one of that athlete's standards, and I was like, shit,
Mm.
those people are relentless, and that's such an attractive quality. You wrote, "Don't romance the bullshit, and don't be a hypocrite, and don't spout rhetoric."
That's my thing. Uh,
Gotta
yeah,
hear about
romance, rhetoric, and yeah.
Don't be a hypocrite. Yeah.
Ugh. I think I don't know. Just the older I've gotten, I probably wasn't as sensitive to it when I was younger, but I just hear a lot of bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes from it. A lot of times, it comes from sport coaches that don't really understand what they're saying, and that it kind of drives me nuts because it's really about they're just basically romancing what they've heard. The popular, I mean, Nick Saban, great coach, really smart, but you're not Nick Saban. I mean, you can't listen to what he says and then just start saying the same things he says because there's things behind what he says, and there's experience behind what he says, and there's meaning behind what he says, and it's not just empty. It's yeah. So I mean, I think there's a lot of romance. People romancing the what goes on around, and what really drives me nuts is, and I think I picked this up. I think I picked this up from Joe mostly is where he talked about that. But during my time with him, I got into this mode where it's like, okay, I don't really give a shit what everybody else is doing. I only give a shit about what we need to do to be our best. Now, does that mean I know what other people are doing? and then see what fits. And that's kind of what I talked about earlier with my programming is look at what you have, see what fits, and then get after it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of romance. It's like these people are doing this, and our coaches. I mean, I've been in a lot of rooms where the coaches are talking, and it's like, well, what are other people doing? As soon as they ask that question, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Much longer I got to sit here? Because why are we gonna have a conversation about what other people are doing? Know what other people are doing? That's fine, but let's talk about what we need to do, and let's get that shit straight. And so yeah, I think that's the romance part. And then it leads into being a hypocrite because you're just talking, and then outside of the room or off the field or outside of your meeting, you're saying all these other things, and I'm just like, that's not what you're talking to your players like. Don't be that guy. Be consistent, be authentic, live what you're saying. Like, I can't stand that. Like, I don't coach my players any different than I parent my kids. It's I'll get in my kids' ass and I'll say things to my kids and I'll do that to the players. But I'll also tell them, when they do something well. So I don't like the hypocritical BS. And then, what's the other one? I forgot. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
Don't spout rhetoric and don't romance the
Oh
bullshit.
yeah. Yeah. The rhetoric. Yeah. So, well, the rhetoric and the hypocrisy are kind of the same thing. Rhetoric is just meaningless crap.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something, and then, the hypocrisy part is when it's behind closed doors or off the field, you can tell that the coaches don't really mean it. And that gets under my skin because I'm just like, that's not the way I roll. So that's kind of what that is. Just
Yeah.
be yourself. I mean, I don't think it's a problem. I watch anytime Nick said, game day. I haven't watched College Game Day in a long time, but I've watched it almost every week now that Saban's on there because I love listening to him. But I don't sit there and go, ooh, and I'm going to do that. I'm just like, I just listen to him because it's like, there's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of experience there, but it's not, I'm not going to just go Saban time. Yeah. So I think, I don't like the hypocrisy part. I think there is a lot in college athletics, and I think there's a lot of rhetoric. I think there's a lot of rhetoric because people don't really take the time to learn themselves or just develop their knowledge. Especially, so for us in strength and conditioning, I mean, we've been there. People think they know something about what we do because they got a little exposure. It's like, okay, exposure doesn't mean knowledge, but I'm the coach of the sport. So that means I know something about what we're talking about when we train. I've dealt with this. So we had a turnover on our track staff pretty recently. Before I had good relationship, they're like, hey, you're good at what you do. Then you turn it over. Hey, I want to write my own programs. Okay, write it and show it to me. Bam, 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 bam. So my red pen, you always have a red pen. Bang, 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 bang. What do you mean? Why can't I said, well, this is all whacked out. I don't understand what you're trying to do with these kids. And, I'm not going to walk out and we do speed work with football, but I'm not going to go coach a track kid on speed. It's a different kind of speed. It matters for your sport more. It's technical. It's more technical. I can't coach that part. But anyway, I mean, it's not a bad relationship. It's just interesting because it's like this, I have this, all-knowing knowledge. What's the word for that? All-knowing.
Omniscient.
Omniscient. I'm not
Omniscient. Yeah.
I've got the sport job, so I'm omniscient. I know all these things. And it's like, nutrition's the worst because it's like, this guy needs to do this. And what does he need to do? He needs to eat. And that's not a good answer. It's like, he needs to eat. But what does he need to eat? No, he just needs to eat. What do you mean? No, he just needs to eat. Yeah, that's it. That's all he does. He needs to eat. And then we can start talking about other stuff. But he's eating twice a day. So he needs to eat 4 times a day. And then we can talk about some other things. And that's what it's just, nutrition gets like this weird, it's gotta be more magical, right? Nutrition's this magical
Not,
thing that, it's not. There's principles
no,
to it, and that's
yep,
what you need to adhere to. But yeah, I just kind of went off on a tangent there. But yeah, rhetoric. I hate rhetoric and hypocrisy and romance. No good.
yeah. I see that. You see that everywhere. You see it in any kind of line of work. In the financial world, the word you're looking for before is contrarian. So when the whole world says, "Hey, buy this stock," we're saying don't buy it because it's already priced in. So you're contrarian doing the opposite. Now, that's just a philosophy of going against the herd, not necessarily the approach of how do you want to be a strength and conditioning coach. But if the whole world is saying it must be velocity based training, must be velocity based training all the fucking time, I'm like, no, okay, no. No, no, you need absolute strength, you need speed strength and repetition strength, and some kind of combination to decide what's optimal for your athlete in their sport and with what you have at your disposal to use. So when people they're always chasing this shiny new toy, and I've had that at my own gym where I would have a coach that need to have a shiny new toy. This is where things are going, and I asked him early on because he's working with our student athletes. Had a lot of great pluses that he brought to the table, especially his positivity and energy. But I asked him, hey, just tell me what is your philosophy on getting people uh, faster and stronger? And 10 minutes went by and he couldn't put a sentence. This is my philosophy of how I get people faster and stronger. I'm like, well, then you don't have a philosophy.
Hmm.
I love how Louis Simmons at Westside would be like, hey, we do conjugate or some variation of it. He would go to the meets. His guys be squatting 1,200, but there'll be other dudes that are squatting 1,200, and he'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, just tell me what you're doing. What's going on? Here's what we're doing. What are you doing? He's trying to learn some things, might pick up one or two things, but not completely change a philosophy because someone else is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a quote that you like I say, it takes what it takes. It's the title of this book, Moad. I've been through the book, but here's what it means to me, and here's why I say that phrase. Here's the why behind it. It's not just, hey man, I saw this on TikTok and now I'm going to be cool because it takes what it takes is catchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have some approach and a reason, all right, then we can move. If you have no reason, then it's just fake and it's never sustainable. Um, I have another one I want to ask you.
You
Training.
guys got all this going. I'm thinking about, working in the high school realm of things. I'm kind of just everything's kind of, you know, hitting a lot of points for me. I'm just like, oh, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially the nutrition.
Well,
The
no, I
nutrition one is
agree. Yeah, because it's like I said, both of my kids have been through it, and they'll come home and they're talking to me about some things that blah blah blah, and I'm just like, what? Who said that? And then they tell me, and I'm
yeah.
just like, then I gotta toe the line. I don't want to be, they got to respect their coaches. I mean, I don't want my kids to be disrespectful. I mean, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, then I'm the one that does like you said, dig under and try to explain that out. And because they're like, I don't know what the hell they were talking about, but they're just talking about it. And it's like catchphrase and this, that. And I'm just like, okay, well, let's dig into it a little bit and I'll help you out. But not all kids
That's
get
one
that.
thing. I am not a big catchphrase guy when it comes to coaching. I'm the worst if I'm talking to kids and stuff like that. Um, I never have a good. I feel like I never use very many catchphrases at all.
Mm.
But you're talking about nutrition earlier, and it's uh, that's exactly what I tell our kids. You just got to eat more. You just got to eat, and it's that's our biggest thing this year is our football team had you know our football team had our last 4 years. I work in inner city public school, so we got about 15, 1,800 100 students. So we have a unique group of kids that we train.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, almost every time, like without fail, 100% of the kids come in with absolutely no training experience. So year in, year out, I'm always having to recycle through and train everybody up, get them up to date, and then it turns into with our football team, we had our strongest year last year by far. It took a couple years to get there, but last year it was getting them to train hard, getting them to be on time, that kind of stuff. This year it's all nutrition. It's the conversation is completely different from last year. It's how we get our guys bigger now, how we categorize, looking the part, I guess. And it's when they ask me what should I be eating, it's always you just got to eat more. What'd you eat for breakfast? And they're like, well, I didn't eat breakfast. And I was like, oh, that's a fail.
Right.
That's an F. What'd you eat for lunch? Well, I only ate the apple or something at lunch because they all hate the school lunch for some reason. I get it; it's not the best, but you still got to eat it if that's the only thing you got to eat. So
Right.
having those kind of conversations, and that nowadays I always keep my office open for any of our athletes that need to come down and maybe heat up their food in the microwave and stuff because we're not allowed to. Our cafeterias don't have microwaves anymore, so our guys are bringing meals in and they got some good meals. They got better meals than I do. So, we got a couple guys bringing in some meals, and that's the biggest thing is, having that conversation about just eating more, and they're doing it. And, they're not making it overcomplicated. So, but just a funny point to bring up.
You mentioned about leading kids and getting them to move correctly or learn the movements. What would you say if I said demoing 40 yards and pulling hamstrings and plyometrics and patellar tendons from Pat Ivy?
Say it again.
So Pat said, ask him about demoing 40-yard sprints and hamstrings. And then he said, ask him about plyometrics and patellar tendons. And I'm like,
So in Tulsa,
shit.
I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And we were so our weight room was next to the practice gym. So we did a lot of work over there. And for some reason, we were inside. I guess the weather was bad. So it must have been off season. So it was probably cold. And so we were probably in there and we were doing some 10-yard starts. And what year is this? 2002, 1, something like that. Yeah, so I'm fairly young. I mean, I'm good. Hand on the line. Boom!
I'm
Just
good.
freaking came out the gate. I fly through that 10-yard mark, and I feel this, and my hamstring just freaking snapped. Like I ruptured it. And I fell straight on my face, slid about 10 more yards, looked up at him and went, I just pulled my hamstring. And he just went, well, guess you need to go see the trainer. And I'm like, yep. And but the funny thing was I had one of the best 10s of the day. So there was that. And then later on, 2007, Missouri, we did our pre-game lifting, and at this point, so I'm a little older now, and we had younger staff, and I don't know how we ended up doing this shit, but we're upstairs. And we lined up all the plow boxes. We're jumping over these things. Boom! Like 30-inch boxes over them. Not on them, over them. And then it's like somebody put another one up. So it's like, boom, boom. And then when somebody puts a third one up, and I'm just like, I can do this. I'm good. And I think when they put the third one up, I said, this is what separates the old from the young. And then on my rep after the second jump, patella snap. I just went down, and they said I was
separated.
They said I was flush white, just like completely no color to me.
Oh.
And they said I looked up and went, I think I tore my patella.
Yeah.
And I did. I tore it. I tore that sucker clean in half. It looked like spaghetti. It was gross, but yeah. So
I'm assuming you don't do demos cold anymore, right?
No. I mean, I've put myself in a situation where I can demo, but yeah, it's measured. I got to measure myself now. It's like 1 or 2. Here we go. But yeah, those are 2. Yeah, those are good stories. Yeah, I'm not surprised he brought them up.
And you're right. It did separate the young from the old.
It did, and he brings that up.
It sure did.
Like, that's what you said. This is what separates the young from the old. And then you tore your patella. I'm like, yep.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that was
That's
funny. It was
funny.
before a game too, so I stood on the sideline in crutches.
Oh.
But I got a nice
The strength coach on the sideline in crutches.
I got a nice cocktail,
look.
so I wasn't feeling a whole lot.
Dang.
We had this one of my good friends, and he coached for me a little bit. He's been a strength coach, he's a football coach now. He's a athletic director at Rice Memorial down in Evansville, Indiana, Chad Dockery. Been on the show. Legit dude. Helped coach my son. Outstanding family. And he was a head coach at Mooresville here in Indiana at one point. And this their best athlete, big guy, D tackle, comes in. All right, coach, I got you today. He's like, what? Bench. And Chad's like, no, you don't. And he's like, let's go. All right. So they start warming up, and it's just ones, just hitting heavy ones. And kid's been already lifting, and Chad comes up from behind the desk, and 135, 85, two and a quarter, 217, 275, 315, and because the kid was been talking about hitting three plates, and Chad just did two of the reps on the way up. I think he did 135 and two and a quarter, and the kid went ready to go, and he got stapled, couldn't get the bar off his chest, so they had to help him off, right?
Yeah.
And Chad walks over and lays down on the bench. This is his third rep. Knocks it out, looks at him, turns his head, and come back next time, son, Said something funny, and went back in his office, sat down. I saw him later. He goes, I thought I was going to die, but there's no way that kid's going to beat me today,
Yes.
There's no way that kid's going to beat me today. I might die on the bench, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I hear that because I do that with my oldest. It's so what we do every Christmas. We call it the Stoner lift. No lift, no gift, or no gift, no lift on Christmas Eve. So we've been doing that for like the last 5 years. Last 4 years have been pretty easy, but I knew this year was going to be tough because he's freaking yoked. He's he's a college heavyweight. He's getting strong. So anyway, and then so we did our squat. I think I had 425. He had 475. I'm like, well, shit, that's 50 pounds. Okay. And my shoulder's jacked, so I was lucky to get. I think I had 325, and I was like, that shit hurt so bad. I was like, okay, and he hit like 350. So I'm like, what? I'm down by 75. All right, let's go deadlift. Because I've always been decent at deadlift, and he's kind of struggled. So I'm like, I don't know if I can make up 75 pounds. But yeah, he hit 445. I hit 515. Beat him by 5 pounds. But yeah, that his face said it all. I pulled it. I looked at him. I said, one more year. And he was like, damn it.
Yeah,
You do that all the time. You pull out this crappy dad strength and you beat me. But no, that's pretty much. I think that was it. I don't think it's going to happen ever again. So I had to relish it.
We were doing some sprints earlier in the year, and a lot of our football guys were not doing really well. They were kind of dogged on it. I'm kind of like, because it's just a class, right? So sometimes kids don't want to take the class of strength conditioning very serious. So
Yeah.
it's just the reality of it. But I was one of the guys to push a little bit harder and really go. So I'm kind of fired up watching them. So I'm like, all right, so we're going from sideline to far hash, about 40 yards, something like that. And no, I've been demonstrating warm ups all day, kind of. So I'm like, I'm good. And I'm not really that old. I'm not even in my 30s yet. But I get on the sideline, and I'm kind of talking smack right now, Adam. I'm letting them know that if I beat you guys, it's done. Like, you guys are done. Smoked. So, hit the whistle, we go. I'm flying down there. I beat every single one of them. And I was really letting them know, like, I just smoked you guys. You guys just need to go sit down and take a zero today because it's pretty bad. We line up again. They're jawing at me, and I'm kind of like, all right, well, I'll get on there. And the second time I run it, I get about halfway down there, and I could feel both of my hamstrings. Nothing tore, but I could feel both my hamstrings. I've never felt this in any athletic thing I've ever done in my life before. But I'm sprinting, and my hamstrings are blowing up like a balloon, both of them at the same time. And I get down there, I'm like, all right, that's what I like to see, guys. I want to see you guys do that every single time. And I went back to coaching. I was like, I ain't doing that again. The rest of the day, I was smoked, couldn't move, and it ruined it ruined everything.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, no, it's real.
And Lucas is young, and he played running back, so he has some speed. And he's still an athlete. Like he qualified for the Arnold in weightlifting, and he's going here in a few weeks. So,
That's
you
awesome.
know,
Yeah.
he's no slouch. He's
Not
Yeah.
sprinting anymore though.
Yeah.
right.
Fucking firing weights over your head.
Hey, so when you're training, Josh, what do you like to listen to?
I'm a hard rock guy. Metallica, Slipknot, AC/DC. Yeah, let's get after it.
All
I
right,
got a I got a list. I got a Apple Music playlist. It says Lift and Metal. It's got about 200 songs on it, and I just hit play, and yeah,
nice.
yeah.
What
So
do you?
it's
What's your bucket list adventure? You and your wife have to go do something you guys haven't done yet.
oh, that's a great question because that's all my wife wants to do is she's got a bucket list, and we've been knocking them out. We went to Machu Picchu last spring break, so we
That's a
went
lot
to
of that's a lot of steps, right?
yeah, we went to Peru, and we were gonna hike it, but my youngest son messed up his meniscus, and
Cool, perfect.
she was she was having knee problems, so we didn't do the 3 day hike into Machu Picchu. We just drove up there, and but yeah, we spent a whole day marching around there, and it was really cool. I think her next one's a little less less exploration, more recreation, like St. Lucia or something like that. But I don't have a bucket list. I just follow hers.
Mm,
Yep.
good choice. Favorite sports movie?
Um, man, if it's like I don't know, for some reason I love the movie Hoosiers. It's old, but
Right.
man, it's got some juice. And then yeah, if you want something cheesy, I love Varsity Blues.
Tweeter's my guy in
He
that
is
movie.
so. I always
Tw-
quote that dude, man. He's great.
Tweeter's my guy. What in the
Yeah.
fuck is that when he's looking down his pants?
Yes.
Yeah, what is
Yeah,
that?
I use that all the time. People are like, "What are you talking about?"
And in Hoosiers, when Jimmy Chickwood at the end says, "I'll make it," right? You can just feel it. Like, oh my
Yeah,
God, he just took the whole world
yeah,
and said, I got you. And then he
yeah,
drains it. Oh, that was
yeah.
sweet. Favorite sport to watch?
Football.
Is it?
Yep. Yeah.
For the longest time, football was mine. But after I started watching rugby, it's football on steroids all the time where there's no slowdown.
Yeah.
Constant play. So I love that quite a bit more. How about your favorite athlete to watch?
Uh, Current or past?
I don't care.
Man, Bo Jackson was my guy.
Mm.
That was man. I was
Talk about
never really,
athlete.
yeah, I never really thought about it, but I think he was a big reason I got so, that the whole strength and conditioning thing really resonated with me. I didn't make the connection when I first started, but as I've gone on, just being in awe of that guy and just how freaking amazing he was as an athlete. I mean, he wasn't because he could just do it all, and it's
Hmm.
like to be Superman like that is just I don't know, amazing to me.
It's the most recent Jim Thorpe out there, right? Where he can be
Hmm.
awesome at everything.
Hmm.
Do you have a favorite book that you like, or a book that you recommend?
Uh, yeah, I mean, extreme ownership really. I mean, there's a lot
Jo-
to that resonates with me.
yep.
Yep.
Jocko Willing gets classic at this point, and it's not that old. How about like a superhero? And I make the mistake, this could be fiction or nonfiction.
Hmm.
It could be a real person. Who's a favorite hero of yours?
I mean, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to superheroes, like
Mm.
DC, Marvel, but Superman's my guy.
New one coming out, man.
I know,
July 11th.
and I've got mixed feelings about it, but I'm gonna watch it. I
Yeah.
watch everything Superman. I'm like, I'm just kind of a like when I was growing up, comics, Superman comics, and I even still have some of them somewhere. I should get them out, but yeah, a little bit
Yeah,
of a nerd when it comes to that.
I'm the dork too. I still had the Superman versus Doomsday comic,
Yes,
which
I have
which
that
which
book.
with book. There's three of them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one. That's the one where the villain wins.
Hmm.
So I just watched the Superman movie trailer yesterday, and I'm 50, so I'm from the Christopher Reeves back
Yes.
in the day Superman, and it has that jingle by John Williams, because he
Oh
wrote
yeah,
the
I got
score.
excited.
Dun, 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 right? So
Yep.
this new film that's coming out, the trailer starts off like that, but
Mm-hmm.
they use electric guitar
Mm-hmm.
for the opening, and then it kind of builds. And I was like, oh shit, I'm all right,
Yeah.
I'm in now.
That's that's the only part of it. I mean, the trailer was okay, but
Yeah,
the score, I was like, man, he brought the
right,
old score back. Because that's
right.
what I thought when they did the
Electric
last,
Diesel,
yeah, tried to do the Superman last. I thought they should have had the old score in there, but
right.
yeah, the old score, I like it too.
How about a
I
villain?
can't.
Go ahead.
I just can't get past the after the last DC Superman with Henry Cavill. I just can't get past like the pants, like the underwear. I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
I
don't.
got you.
Yeah.
I'm just like, we're beyond that. I don't know. It's just
No, no trunks. Okay.
trunk.
How about villain?
Uh, yeah, kind of staying with the nerd. The Joker, man. He's a interesting guy, psychotic, but has his moments of whatever. But I don't know if that says something about me, but that's the guy.
He's the most popular answer on this show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
and it's the
That's
Heath
interesting.
Ledger one that blows everyone away.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. His was good, but I mean, even back when I was like comics and stuff, the Joker always intrigued me.
Yeah. Yep. He was pure. There's no this and that. It was like this is completely driven with
Hmm.
his endeavor. What's your favorite lift?
It has become the deadlift because
Beat
that's
your
really the
son.
only one I can knock out without a whole lot of things going on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my the back says no a lot, and the shoulder's starting to say no a lot. So
Mm. Since you're a big rhetoric guy, just kidding. Do you have a favorite quote?
the only easy day was yesterday.
Navy SEALs,
Do something hard today.
right?
That way, yesterday was easy,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be physical. I'm just talking. Can be whatever.
Sure. Where can we find you and Stephen F. Austin and their endeavors in sports and athletics? Where can we find you guys? Or people want to reach out to you professionally?
Uh, I have I have a Twitter account, Coach Josh Stoner. I do have a Instagram. Not really good with the Instagram, but it's the same thing, Coach Josh Stoner. SFA. We got our website. We got some stuff on there. We got our different accounts with different sports. We got the main athletic stuff, and then each sport has their own thing going on. So yeah, just the basic social media.
Cool. Cool. And for those that still want to reach out to us, it seems to happen very uh, infrequently, but then frequently. So it kind of comes in lumps when we get people, but it's info@athlete-builder.com for those that are still looking out there. So a book came out right before Christmas. It's out there right now, Barnes& and Noble and Amazon. And then this is the prototype. So the Champions Planner that goes along with the book. It's 3 months. So if you're an athlete and you're asking about process and how do I find out, how do I do some self-evaluation, how do I do some introspective assessments on how good I am or what my whys are or how do I track my habits. And if you're Lucas and you say, hey, you got to eat more and you're eating 2 meals a day, you want to start tracking 3 meals a day or whatever it is, this planner is the one that is the tool to implement what the information is in the book. So you read the book, you implement with the planner, or you just implement with me and Lucas. So that's one of the things that's coming out. It's the last prototype. We're marking it up one last time, and then it'll be available as well. So, Josh, thanks for coming on the show. Good time. I'm glad I got a hold of Pat in advance because it's a little a little sniper action, taking you out from afar. Taking some shots.
Yep.
And so all I texted him was, Josh Stoner's coming on. You got anything good for me? And he goes, I got you. And he sent me 6 things. I'm like, cool. So learned a lot, a good time, provided a lot of value. So, man, thanks for the gift. Thanks for coming on today.
Appreciate you guys having me. Had a great time.
All right. Best luck. Have a great 2025.
Thank you.